What would the first 72 hours of World War III actually look like? Not a battlefield of trenches and bayonets, not the slow mobilization of a century past, but a war that begins in silence, in fiber optic cables, satellite uplinks, and encrypted command networks before a single soldier ever crosses a border. This is not science fiction. This is the scenario that military strategists, intelligence analysts, and war planners across the world's major powers are actively gaming right now. In the next 10 minutes, we are going to walk through what those first 72 hours might actually look like, hour by hour, decision by decision, and what it would mean for every person on this planet. Today, three superpowers, the United States, China, and Russia, are locked in the most dangerous strategic standoff in modern history, each one armed, each one watching, each one waiting. The post-Cold War framework that kept great power conflict off the table for 30 years is fracturing. The rules-based international order, built on American military dominance, open global trade, and nuclear deterrence, is under unprecedented pressure from every direction. The flashpoint is Taiwan, a 12,000 square mile island that both Beijing and Washington have staked their global credibility on. China has spent 20 years building the world's largest military. Its doctrine is clear: control Taiwan, dominate the Pacific, and fracture the American alliance system. Beijing views reunification, by force if necessary, as a core historical obligation. The United States has repositioned its Indo-Pacific Command, accelerated weapons transfers, and reaffirmed its commitment to Taiwan's defense. Multiple U.S. administrations have moved steadily towards strategic clarity, the implicit promise to defend Taiwan militarily. Both sides are telling themselves they are ready. What neither side has fully calculated is what happens in the first 72 hours when everything goes wrong. It begins not with a declaration of war. It begins with a satellite going dark. Somewhere over the Pacific, a Chinese anti-satellite missile eliminates a key U.S. reconnaissance asset. The strike is precise, deniable, just ambiguous enough to create a 4-hour window of institutional confusion inside the American command structure. At the same time, a coordinated cyber attack, almost certainly state-sponsored, but with no clean attribution, penetrates the command and control infrastructure of U.S. bases across Japan and Guam. Logistics networks go offline, communications degrade, backup systems kick in, but slowly. The first reports hitting the Pentagon are confusing, contradictory, exactly as designed. This is the opening move of what military theorists call a gray zone offensive, actions designed to degrade, confuse, and paralyze an adversary before they can mount a coherent response. Before we go further, if this kind of analysis is what you have been looking for, this channel exists precisely to map these scenarios before they reach the headlines. Subscribe now and make sure you never miss what is coming next. Hour 1. Within 60 minutes, Chinese amphibious forces begin movement off the Fujian coast. Not a full invasion, not yet. A show of force designed to paralyze Washington's decision cycle and force every U.S. ally in the region to make an immediate, irreversible commitment. Every minute of hesitation is a message Beijing reads precisely. Hour 6. Within 6 hours, Japan activates its self-defense forces. South Korea moves to DEFCON 2. NATO foreign ministers begin emergency calls. In Moscow, Russian military planners see their moment. A distracted United States, a fractured NATO response, a Pacific theater consuming U.S. strategic bandwidth. Russia begins probing exercises along the NATO eastern flank, Poland, Estonia, Latvia. What began as a Taiwan crisis is now a two-front strategic emergency. Hour 24. The global economy begins to shake. Shanghai and Hong Kong stock markets open and immediately trigger circuit breakers. Oil futures spike 40% in under 2 hours. The Nasdaq futures contract goes into freefall. Taiwan Strait shipping lanes, through which 40% of the world's container traffic passes, are now effectively closed. Global supply chains that took decades to build begin unwinding in real time. The Internet backbone, which runs through undersea cables traversing the Pacific, has been partially severed. Entire regional communications networks are operating in degraded mode. Hour 48. A U.S. destroyer intercepts a Chinese submarine within the Taiwan territorial threshold. A warning shot is fired. Whether by accident or design, the submarine does not surface. This is the moment strategists call escalation dominance collapse, the point where both sides are responding faster than either side can think, where doctrine takes over from judgment, where the fog of war is no longer a metaphor but the actual operating environment for the most consequential decisions in modern history. Hour 72. 3 days in, and the world looks nothing like it did when the satellite went dark. No nuclear exchange, no formal declaration of war, but the global order has fractured in ways that will take decades to understand. Energy markets are in free fall. The Strait of Hormuz, the choke point through which 20% of global oil supply passes, is now under Iranian interdiction threat, drawn in by the vacuum of American distraction. Civilian populations in allied nations, Japan, South Korea, Australia, and Germany are receiving emergency alerts for the first time in their lives. Supermarket shelves are being stripped. Emergency generators are being activated. Governments are invoking emergency powers. The global financial system, built on the assumption of continued U.S. dominance and the dollar's reserve currency status, is facing its first genuine existential stress test. This is not a hypothetical. Every scenario mapped out here is derived from military wargaming exercises by the Rand Corporation, the U.S. Naval War College, and strategic analysts who have spent careers studying exactly this question. The answer they keep arriving at is the same. The first 72 hours are the most dangerous window in any major power conflict, precisely because they move faster than any human institution is designed to respond to. Every week, this channel maps the scenarios that most people will only read about after they happen. If you want to stay ahead of what is coming, subscribe, leave a comment with the crisis you think deserves the next analysis, and share this video with someone who needs to understand what the world is actually moving towards. The architects of modern deterrence always believed that the threat of mutual destruction would prevent catastrophic conflict. What they did not fully account for was the speed of modern warfare. How fast a satellite strike, a cyber attack, and a miscalculation in the South China Sea can cascade beyond any single leader's ability to control. The 72-hour scenario doesn't end with victory for anyone. It ends with a world that must make an impossible choice: escalate into something no civilization has survived, or find a way to pull back from a brink that no one planned to reach. The lesson of history is not that great powers are irrational. It is that rational actors, operating under pressure with incomplete information in the first hours of a crisis, make decisions that no one, not even themselves, would have chosen in the cold light of a normal morning. The real question may not be whether the world will face another global crisis. The question is whether the leaders holding the decisions of the next 72 hours will recognize what is unfolding before it is too late.